Hi everybody, this is Carla Wills Brandon. Let me get this thing straight. Oh my gosh, it's so bright. Ooh. How are you doing? Happy Sunday. Coming from Galveston Island. Woo, that sun is bright. I gotta do something about that. I'll put my head right here. That should work. Okay, big head. Me, right there. As I said, this is Carla Wills Brandon coming to you from a toasty Galveston Island. Extremely toasty Galveston Island. I mean to tell you, I take more showers. Good grief. I am a cold weather person. You give me 38 degrees or lower, I'll be in shorts in the snow. I used to snow ski in shorts. I'm not kidding. And so though I love the island, and those of you who live here, you know what I'm talking about. It is bloody hot right now, along with the tourists, hogging up all the parking spaces on the beach, so we can't go to the beach. And going and taking a shower and powdering yourself up and feeling like $1 million when you look in the mirror, and then going outside and melting. Just melting. Who has time to sit and meditate in this heat unless you're in an ice box? So thank goodness I have great air conditioning. But anyway, I decided to make this video because I wanted to talk to you about something that is one more of these trends that has to do with the death phobia that is just pounding our society. I mean, it's overwhelming. If you look on television nowadays and you look at anything that has to do with the paranormal, let me ask you this question. Does it feel sensationalized? Is it scary? Does it feel like if there isn't fear involved in it, if people aren't screaming and yelling and, ghosts are biting them and all this other sort of nonsense, are you going to watch it? I'm not. I'm going to tell you something. I have never had a spirit person bite me. I have never had a spirit person hit me. I have never had a spirit person be abusive. I had one spirit person in a 100-year-old office who was not behaving. He was a crab in real life, and he was still a crab. While on the other side, well, personally, I don't think crab, more like jokester. And he would scare my clients. And they would come running down the stairs because he would manifest full force in front of them. But never once did he bite them. Never once did he push them. Never once did he hurt them. There may be some sort of loop that may be going on in some of these homes involving a tragedy. And once in a blue moon, there may be spirit consciousness where there is some uncomfortableness involved or something not right has happened. But that's very, very, very rare. But what do we see on television? That's all we see, okay? And then if some soul, some courageous soul, Morty is snoring up a storm. If some courageous soul shares some sort of after-death communication, like when I go up into my attic, I feel somebody touching the top of my head. If somebody shares something as simple as that, and is it scary? Well, not really. Well, who do you think it is? Well, I'm not real sure. Well, do you want to do some work on it and find out who it is? Yeah, okay. Today, who's going to listen to that? Really? About a decade ago, when contact with the afterlife began to bust out a little bit, people would turn on their televisions to listen to accounts like that. And so previous to that whole era, okay, here's what it was like. When I first started investigating departing visions, I couldn't just go online and contact an experiencer or go read some literature that was online, read historical books online. There weren't all these different ways to contact experiencers. And of course, experiencers today, as were back then, are still a bit remiss about agreeing to make that contact. So the 20-year-old girl who had lost her father, who began seeing him in the kitchen as she walked past the kitchen, and he didn't talk. There was no verbal communication. This was an after-death communication. But there was no communication, no verbal communication. And he would just sit there, and she would just catch him in the side of her eye. And it happened over and over and over again. And finally, one time, she saw him, and she had the courage to go into the kitchen and sit down. And he appeared to her as solid as in life. And there was no verbal communication, as I said earlier, but the communication was mind to mind. And the message she got was, there's a piece of jewelry that you have been looking for that's in a drawer in a certain room, and I love you. And then she went and she found the piece of jewelry, and she felt very validated that yes, her father had come to her, that he was okay. Well, the next step was, where do I go to get information about this, and who am I going to talk to? Well, back then, you couldn't just pick up the phone and call somebody and talk to them about it, and your relatives would think you were nuts. And there wasn't a lot of internet access back then. And so eventually she found her way to me, and we were able to meet face-to-face and do some work. Now, in order to set up the meeting to meet, that took several months. That was not an overnight experience. That took several months. So when I began putting together information about departing visions, after-death communications, near-death experiences, premonitions, all that wonderful stuff, and I would send information to a publisher, I couldn't just upload, download, scan it to the publisher. I had to hand type it out. I'm giving my age away here, but that's okay. And I would have to then send it to somebody to have it edited because there was no spell check. And then I would have to box it up, and I would have to send it to an editor to see whether or not the agent, whether or not the agent would even accept the book. You know how long that process took? Just to get the dang thing sent. That was about a week. And then to hear back that the agent had received the book, that took about 2 weeks. And then to begin to get bits of information about whether or not it was going to be accepted, that was another 6 months. And this was a long experience, And then, of course, all reference information came from a library. It didn't come from looking it up online. So it was a very tedious task. So it was tedious for the experiencers. It was tedious for them to find someone like me and vice versa. It was tedious for me to, of course, get the information on paper, typewriter paper, and then get the process going to see whether or not the information was publishable material. Well, with the advent of the internet and with the beginnings of social media, things began to change. So now what I could do is I could send out a mass email to the people that were my email contacts, and I could say, I'm going to be doing a book on spiritually transformative experiences. So if you have had some sort of experience where you felt you were connected, a peak experience, you felt were connected with the entire earth, or you met up with a deceased relative, or you had a premonition, could you please email me back? Or if you know somebody who has had an experience like that, can you pass this email on to them? I was in heaven. That made communication so much easier. So then I would send out this form with a phone number address and email contact information. And like I said, it was so much easier. And that's how we operated. It was a joy to be able to email my agent and say, hey, have you gotten the material? Or to have an experiencer contact me and say, I had this vision, this wonderful vision, and it involved my wife of 50 years. My wife and I, we had struggled for so many years in our marriage. And then we got to a comfortable space. I didn't use the word space, but place. And we began to really enjoy each other. And the last 20 years of our marriage, it was delightful. It was wonderful. And then she suddenly developed a deadly type of cancer. And all of a sudden, I watched her wither away from a beautiful woman to a shell of herself. And then when she passed, I saw this strange mist come out of her body. And I didn't know what to make of it. But I was so upset about what was going on and about her passing that I didn't pay much attention to it. And I missed her terribly. I missed her so terribly that I wanted to join her. I wanted to commit suicide so that I could be with her. Because I'm a good Catholic. And I know that we have to look at ourselves. But still, I was willing to do anything in order to be with her. And then one day, I was sitting and working on some paperwork. And all of a sudden, I saw her. And there was light surrounding her. And she came to me, and she kissed me on the top of the head. And she said, "It's not your time yet. You're still needed here." And I knew exactly what she was talking about. She knew that I wanted to commit suicide. And then suddenly, the face of my grandson appeared to me. And I knew why I needed to stay. I needed to be here for him. And so then, after that, I decided to go get help from a grief group in order to get a handle on this. And that grandson, he did need my help. Eventually, he did need my help. But this mist thing keeps coming up for me. And I don't know what that's about. And I saw your announcement about experiences like this on an announcement board at my church. It was tacked up there. And so can you help me? And so communication from experiencers, and yes, I was able to help him, and I felt very humbled to be able to do that. So contact with experiencers began to change. It wasn't as difficult. And also it was more anonymous for them. So they could contact me anonymously in an email, and then we could set up a time after some communication. We could set up some time where we could get together and we could meet and we could talk about these things over coffee somewhere. They didn't have Starbucks then. But we could meet at like a McDonald's and have a cup of coffee, and they could ask me questions. And then what would happen for them as they healed, they would be more open to talking about their experiences with others, and then they would pass my name on to other people. And so it would be the tree effect, where one experience would have the positive experience of sharing an account, and they would share this with somebody else, and so it went on down the branches, if you want to say. Well, then we had Facebook, and then InstaChat, and then Twitter. Of course, the original was MySpace. And with MySpace, what I did is I was able to put up information, characteristics, examples of what afterlife communication looked like. And there were people who were contacting me and asking me if I was a medium. Now, as a mental health provider, I can't practice mediumship while doing a mental health service. Because if I do that, what's going to happen is that my boards will come along and say, we deem you crazy person, you lose your license. So I had to separate those two things out. So after MySpace, what I discovered was Facebook, and I learned that I could actually put up different pages. And so I put up one page that dealt with afterlife experiences, and then I could have a separate page for mental health issues. And that was wonderful. Oh my goodness sakes. So people who would come to me through that page, what they could do is or MySpace, is that they could see all of the articles that I had written, and they could read some of the examples that I had collected personally from face-to-face encounters, or from colleagues of mine, or from, there was this wonderful little clip that was put out by a researcher, a near-death experience researcher. And it's on my Facebook page that deals with afterlife communication, afterlife contact. And it's a black and white clip. And the clip is of these two women on a popular afternoon television show. And they are sharing about how, I think it was in the 1960s, and they're sharing about how they both saw the spirit, the soul, the mist leave a loved one's body at the same time. So it wasn't just one of them, it was both of them. Now, when I came across this clip, I can guarantee you that I posted it on all of my sites, because I believe this is a we journey, not a me journey. And I was delighted to be able to share this clip that this colleague had put up. So Facebook, and I put it on a couple of other social media things also. If I get something that's really good, I can guarantee you it's going to go everywhere. And so that, for me, provided opportunity to share with you more information about these topics, to give you resources, to give you articles to read, to give you sites to visit, so that you could learn some more, so that if you had had an experience or encounter yourself, you wouldn't have to feel so awkward or frightened. Or if you had a friend who had an experience, you could pass this on to them. Or if you were trying to recover from some death phobia yourself, this could be part of your spiritual journey. Or if you just wanted information because you had lost a loved one and you were in grief. So, in the early days, this was a delight. It was wonderful. And so I would put up videos, information. I would create videos. I would put up videos involving programs that I had been on. And I would share those. And I wouldn't charge. And I didn't charge for any of the information I put up there either. This was service. This is service. I always need to remember that my research and any of my abilities need to be used in the name of service. Of course, I do have those publishers and agents and people that would like me to push some of my books in order for them to recoup a little bit of money too. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I will never be the type of person who will sell all sorts of CDs and all sorts of pamphlets and things and try to gouge the public. Well, after that, what began to happen were the Hollywood mediums, and you all have heard me complain about them over and over again. And the majority of them, I believe, do have abilities. But what happens oftentimes in the field of mediumship is that people become so enamored with themselves, with the evidence that is given to them, that they forget to take care of themselves and grow. Yes, this is what happens. And so spirituality, their own spirituality, is put on the back burner. And nothing seems to surprise them anymore. And so there's this saying that there are those people who have an experience and they think they're God. And then there are other people who have experiences and they know they're not God. Hopefully, I will always understand that I am nobody's God or nobody's higher power. That I am somebody who is here to provide services. Whether those services are mental health care healing, or whether it has to do with the research that I do, or whether it has to do with being a medium. If I forget that and forget to work on myself and my own growth, if I don't, shut it all down sometimes, and do what I need to do to take care of my own healing, then what's going to happen is my ego is going to be the size of Texas, and my prices will be outrageous, and my humanity will go out the window, and I will think I'm more than I really am. So it began to happen with the Hollywood mediums. And so I would watch them get wonderful, evidential information, just wonderful stuff. And then over time, what I began to notice that after paying to go to their workshops, there was the push to pay for all of their books, all of their CDs, and their next overpriced workshop. And I felt very, very sad. I remember feeling very sad about that. But it was another reminder, that's not how I want to be. I want to be available, but with boundaries. I want to be able to share my experience, strength, and hope, but let those who come to me recognize that I can only give them a head start. There are individuals who actually become addicted to mediums. And what they will do is they will go to one medium after another medium, after another medium, after another medium. As opposed to having some great readings and then doing the cleanup work that they need to do. So there was this one woman who I worked with eons ago. And she's not on this side anymore, so I feel comfortable talking about her. And she was addicted to going to mediums. And she would go to all of these workshops, tons of them. That was her whole life. And she got great readings, wonderful readings. But the problem was she forgot to do the cleanup work on herself. So lots of times individuals will come to me and they will say, I have been trying so hard Why doesn't my mother come through? Why won't she come through? I have done all these workshops. I have read all these books. I have paid all this money out, and my mother doesn't come through. And when we get into it, I will see the mother standing right there. The mother's there. The mother's available. The problem is the individual is carrying so much anger toward the mother that they're not in a place to see the mother. So one woman told me, my mother, she was a drug addict. She was a drug addict, and she wouldn't quit taking all these pills. And this was a younger person. And this person was not in a place to be without a mother. But this mother overdosed and was found in the living room after some time. And so then the father, of course, went off the deep end. And so this poor son was left by himself to try to wade through this, wade through what had happened. And he didn't know how to handle any of it. And he was so incredibly angry. He was angry at his father for not being there for him. He was angry at his mother for her drug addiction. And he just didn't understand why he couldn't make contact with her. And so I said, has it ever occurred to you that maybe you have a lot of anger work to do? Maybe you need to take the time to beat on a bunch of pillows or write some anger letters or do something. And you know what he said to me? He said, you're not supposed to do that. You don't speak ill or bad about people who died. I can't do that. Plus, she was my mother. Well, the mother is standing right there, and she already knows how he feels. And so I said to the kid, I said, well, you don't think she already knows how mad you are? You think that she doesn't feel it, see it? After going and getting, and this was very unusual for this young person to go get readings. You've gone and gotten readings. You've gone to Lilydale, which is home of the spiritualist movement, where there is a belief that life continues, and public demonstrations with mediums are given regularly. And I said, you have an idea. And I said, is it possible that maybe you have a ton of anger to do? A lot of anger to do. And so we did a little bit of work with some visualization stuff just so that he could see his anger. And he got it. He was really, really mad. He was so mad. And so then what I had him do is I had him just look at her picture. That's all he had to do, is look at her picture every night before he went to sleep. Just look at it. And just see what kind of dreams came up. And all these dreams came up of him chewing his mother out and having angry conversation with her. And so he kind of got it. He got it. That he needed to do some of his own work. And so he did dutifully work on his anger. And once the wreckage of his past was cleared away, and it didn't happen overnight, gang. When we have a loved one who crosses over to the next dimension, if we are angry with them, our anger isn't going to evaporate because of it. Also, you're not doing the wrong thing by processing out your anger, having your anger, and doing what you need to do to clear it out. Another thing is, like I said, it's not going to happen in a week. It's probably going to take a little time. And it's going to take you giving yourself permission to be angry. And sometimes in the visualizations, I'll have folks visualize the person on the other side that they're angry with and ask them, is it okay for me to be mad? And you know what the answer typically is? Of course. Yes. I understand. Once in a while, the image will disappear. Once in a while, there will be no contact, no connection. But for the most part, these individuals are startled to hear it's okay for you to be angry. Of course, you need to be angry. Or be angry for as long as you need to be angry. So on the other side, for the most part, they are continuing their journey and doing what they need to do. And they understand that it's important for us to process out our feelings. And so initially when I began working with people like this didn't come up quickly. It didn't come up overnight. It didn't come up in Instagram. It didn't come up in a Twitter or a text message. This was information that would slowly come up. But over the years, the information began to get to me sooner. And in that way, I could be of service sooner. So with all these little gadgets and apps and FaceTime and Skype and video chat and doggy chat and whatever chat, we now have the opportunity to connect with one another quicker, more efficiently. Years ago, I know I've shared this, years ago, I had a peak experience where I saw how all of us were connected, how we were all connected energy-wise, and it was an overwhelming, awesome experience. And so today with social media, that's kind of like the pre-step to us eventually recognizing as a whole, because I know there's some of you out there who already know this, as a whole, that we are all connected, and that our emotion is energy, and that we can heal, and that we can, if we do the right work, we can get to a place where we open up the channel so that we are more available to our loved ones in the next dimension. That was such an exciting time when all that stuff was happening. I could, if I had an interest in a certain culture that had a particular type of departing vision, I could plug that in and I could go look at it, and I could find a bunch of sources on it from different books, from videos, and it was like quick. It was quick and it was exciting. And it would take me on a different path in my own development, because I'm developing too, you guys. I will always be developing. And so when I would get upset about something if I would have a new experience, mediumship-wise, I could look it up online. If I needed to talk to somebody, a mentor, and I have a mentor, and my mentor is in a different country. But if I needed to talk to my mentor about some things that were going on, I had a bunch of choices about how to communicate. And sometimes if I was desperate, I would use all of them. And so it was a good time. It was a really good time. It was a way to sense that healing, that connection that was going on with us in this dimension and the next dimension. Well, then something started to happen. I'm not big, as I said, about pushing my books. So I have people who will tell me to push my books, or I have people who will tell me to post something about my work. But I don't typically just put up a lot of stuff on a regular basis. And as I said, I will always put information up for free. And I will, with boundaries, if someone needs help, if they have questions, I will answer questions. Via all the social media, I will answer questions to a degree. But what I started to see happening was that, where it was so easy before to plug something in about afterlife contact and get all this wonderful information, I was now seeing scads of ads. Scads and scads and scads of ads. And it would take me forever to wade through all of this stuff. You know, the individual who would clean your house waving sage for $1,000, or the person who would give you a reading for 15 minutes for $200, or just wading through this stuff, or of course lots and lots of books, and the majority of them not being really useful, especially if I was looking at historical stuff. Let me tell you why that's been a problem. Okay, when I do a reading with somebody, if they tell me no, if I give them some evidence and they tell me no, what I will do is I will say, okay, and move on to something else. A lot of the Hollywood mediums, as I have said, they will push and push and push and push, hoping that their evidence will fit the situation, even if it doesn't. And they will become kind of shaming too, and I don't see that of any benefit. But what I started to see is that there were a lot of people putting up videos, and first of all, there were the people who do cold readings. And I've talked about cold readings before, where you can look at somebody and size them up and you give them the information. And if they're in a lot of grief or pain, they will think that they just got a reading from a medium or a psychic. That's a cold reading. But then there are those individuals, of course, who charge large sums of money, and then what they do is they try to force their evidence onto the person when the person can't accept it, as opposed to just moving on. And so I started to see a lot of this online. Of course, there is still some magnificent stuff online. If you want to see some really good mediums, go online and you will find those mediums who, in humility, will give incredible readings. Or you will find those authors who will give their books away for free, actually, or who will post information for free on their sites. But what I began to see is the business aspect of it. And I began to see how there were many individuals who were not growing themselves, but who instead were becoming the kings and the queens. And their way was the only way. Remember, we talked about those individuals who politically see that their way is the only way, and those completely opposite see their way is the only way, and how they argue and fight with each other. Well, the same can be said for people who investigate the paranormal. You will have people who will say that their system, their way of doing it, is the only way to do it. And how they get their information is the only way to get the information. I took a class recently with somebody who didn't like the way I was getting my evidence. And what they did is they actually interrupted a reading I was giving. And it was a very awkward situation. And what I understood real quickly is that I was being chastised. And so what I did is I said to myself, there, but for the grace of God, go I. Thankfully. And what I was getting was some incredible information. A woman, I was doing a reading for a woman, and the word uncle came up for me. And then I saw a man sitting at a bar, and he was slamming his fist down on the bar and having a really good time, and he was talking to everybody, and he obviously liked the drink, and I got it pretty quickly that he just loved being at the bar, and he liked sitting at the bar, and there was something about the bar that was personal for him. And eventually what I found out was that, yes, this was this person's uncle, and that, yes, he was a partial owner in the bar, and that he did like to sit and chat with the customers. When I heard from this other person that they felt that my system or the way I was doing things or how I was doing things was wrong, of course, it cut everything off right away. So there are individuals out there who have a specific system. The people I hang out with, we all work it a little different, and we're all growing. And so we learn from each other, and we try to be open to suggestion, and we may develop one system for a while and then put that aside. The same thing goes for my research. For a long, long time, I only looked at one aspect of the departing vision. I'll never forget doing an interview with Art Bell, who is coming back, actually. He's coming back on the 20th, July 20th, with his brand new show. So be sure to look it up. But years ago, I did an interview with him, and he was asking me about certain aspects of the departing vision, and I had not gotten to a place in my own growth yet, in my own research, where I had the answer. And so what I said was, I don't know, because at that place, I did not know. Today, I do have some more information, and I feel a little more confident. So if I were to have a discussion with him today, I would be able to say, here's some information I think that might fit. But when you have writers and authors and lecturers and mediums who are telling the rest of society that this is the way it is, that's just like individuals who are saying to us, my brand of politics is right, your brand of politics is wrong. And the addiction is self-righteousness. It's addiction to a way of thinking without having the freedom of, allowing for the freedom of an open mind to be able to grow and evolve. And so today, I will put up one cat picture, one cute cat picture, usually of my cats, because I'm like a big cat person. And I will have 150 to even 200 likes for one of my silly cat pictures. But when I put up information on the afterlife, or I put up information on how we can develop, or if I put up information on research, free of charge, it will never, ever get as many likes, or as many comments, or as many plus signs, or as many shares as my cat pictures. And why is that? Because I think that we have entered briefly a new phase where it was one time very exciting to hear about those individuals who were having near-death experiences or some of these other profound experiences. Now what's happened is that the media has told us that this must be sensationalized. And if it's not sensational, then we might get a little bored with it. We may not really want to look at it. We see sensationalism as a validation for reality. And that's just not true. But we are flooded with reality shows. We sit and we gobble down the Real Housewives of the whatever, and what we do is we get into their lives and we emote. We have emotion based on what's going on in their lives. And it's very easy to do this because these are third parties. They're not connected to us. Some of the feelings may be the same, but there's still that wall of disconnect. What I think was happening earlier is that we were reading some of these accounts, some of these afterlife accounts, and we were connecting. They were resonating with us. They were feeling right. Standing in a graveyard at a funeral and seeing the one who has passed on in a distance, waving, and then trying to figure out who am I going to talk to about that, and then going online and easily finding a book on after-death communications, or going to the hospital and coding out and being dead basically, and then coming back and talking about messages received from the afterlife, about missions that still need to be completed and family that still love us, and the whoosh of the tunnel, and then being able to go online and plug that in and find a book that we can get, several books that we can get, and finding organizations that we can go to so that we can be with, like an IANS group. IANS groups are groups for near-death experiencers and their families, and they are all across the United States, and they are put on by the International Association of Near-Death Studies. Or having a departing vision, seeing the mist leaving the body, or being in one location and all of a sudden feeling what it feels like to die. And then 3 states over, a beloved one is going through the same process of passing over. We could go and we could easily access literature for this. A couple of years ago, I shared with you that I almost died. It's all good now. I'm good. I'm here. I'm honoring. I'm back. But during that time, I had a type of near-death experience. And what this involved was, it involved me hearing a music that I will never be able to describe. And it involved me hearing bells, a certain type of bell that I can't really describe. And it involved me hearing voices coming together spiritually to be with one another and be there for me. And it felt like it was so near. And then there was one primary voice that was giving out messages. And I remember some of the messages, they were very calming. But there are a lot of the other messages I do not remember. And when I finally remembered all of this, I was still in the hospital, and I had my husband go look around to see, were there radios playing? What was going on? Was there something that I could attach all this to? And there was nothing. Well, thank goodness I had learned about music and near-death experiences, and some of the things that people had experienced in regard to what I had experienced and how I couldn't explain it real well. And today, if I were to plug that into my search engine, it would take me quite a while to get to that, because what I would have to wade through would be all of the ads and the sell jobs and the here's our $3,000 course that you can go through. And so today I worry about the person who is out there, who is having some of these experiences. And with the web being so clogged with ads and kings and queens and my way is the only way, how difficult it must be becoming for them to finally find that one book or find that one video or find that one piece of written information online that tells them that they're not crazy, or here's somebody you can contact, or you're not alone. You're not alone. And so I know why my videos and the videos of other people like me aren't getting as many likes as the cat photos. I understand. We're kind of backsliding a little bit. We're going through hard times. We're going through politically crazy times. Our world is in an uproar. Um, we have vets coming home who have lots of PTSD. Do you know that some of those vets have had departing vision experiences or after-death communications? And because the military won't even acknowledge in a healthy way the PTSD, these poor people don't know where to go or who to get help from with their afterlife contacts or some of these experiences they've had. I can tell you they can contact me, or they can go to IANS, the International Association for Near-Death Studies, to that website, and there are also several other studies where they can free of charge look up information and articles. So we have a world in turmoil, so we want to escape. We want things that are exciting, and we want reality television. We want it to be over the top because we so want to escape reality and escape what's going on with us. Right now, alcoholism and drug addiction amongst us, from my professional point of view, is very alive and well. Unfortunately, people aren't seeking out the help that they need to get, the proper help that they need to get. So escape is the name of the game right now. And so if you have stuck it out long enough to watch this video, that means that you are still seeking answers and seeking information. And so I want you to know that you can contact me and you can ask me for this information. Also, I've noticed that some of my YouTube viewers will post something, and in my world, I have a hard time getting to all of those YouTube videos to see what messages have been left. And so if I don't respond to you within a month, you can always email me at drsbrandon@live.com. That's DRSBRANDON @live.com, or you can go to my Facebook page. There's one that's Carla Wills Brandon. There's one that's Authors Digs, which is about the books. And then there's one that is dedicated to deathbed visions. And all you have to do is do a Google search for Carla Wills Brandon Facebook Deathbed Visions, and you'll find it. I'm going to leave you with one last amazing account that I recently heard. And I heard this from the experiencer, face to face. And the reason why I'm sharing it with you is because this is a person who I had known and still know very well. It's someone I had done business with. This is a lawyer. This is a person who we have done some sexual abuse cases with each other. I mean, I have come in as the expert. Well, anyway, this person knew this other side of my life. And one day, not face to face, he wouldn't tell me face to face, but he sent me an email, and he said, my father is getting ready to pass, and I'm starting to see some things that I don't understand, and this seems to be in your arena. So after making fun of me for all of these years and giving me a hard time about this stuff, and calling it my woo-woo stuff, he's finally not contacting me about a case, but he's contacting me about his father, who's getting ready to pass. An elderly gentleman, very, very kind person, very charismatic, somebody who you'd look at once and you'd give him a second look, even in his older years. And he was, religiously, he was a Baptist. So the whole family, they were Baptists. So, of course, you don't talk about afterlife communication in the Baptist church, as far as I know. If any of you know anything different, let me know. Well, anyway, he said to me that his father had told him that his time was coming soon, that he wasn't going to be around that much longer. And even though this was an elderly gentleman, he appeared to be in pretty good shape. He was in good health. He was mobile. He was doing pretty good. And so my friend, the son, had said, "Oh no, you're going to be around forever. You're going to be around longer than us. Don't say that. That's not true." And of course, the father, from what I understand, didn't argue with his son. And so several months later, the father suddenly did become feeble and fragile, and he was bedridden. And so the family decided they had care, 24-hour care. This is a man who, like so many others who can't have this experience, was able to pass in his own bed in his own home. And so the family, with the 24-hour care, would take turns sitting at his side. And they all began to notice that he was talking to somebody else in the room, and that he would carry on these conversations, and he would be very animated. With his hands, he would be animated. And it was as if he was having a conversation with somebody in this world. And so for the family, this good Baptist family, they were kind of mortified. They didn't really know how to deal with this. Well, my friend got a hold of me, and thankfully I knew of a video of a Baptist minister who had had a near-death experience. And so I said, "You need to go listen to this." And in this video, this minister talked about going to the other side and talking to deceased relatives and what it felt like. And this offered my poor friend something to hang what he was seeing with his father on. He didn't feel quite so nutty. He tried to talk to his minister about it. Of course, that was a big no-go, big shock there. But the more fragile his father became, the more animated in his conversations he became, with not just one person, but several people in the room that this guy couldn't see. And so there was a morning when a nurse came in to take care of this man. And she was well aware of what a departing vision was. And so it wasn't hard for her at all to see what was happening. And so she too, my husband just decided to mow the lawn. Can you believe this? Doesn't he know what I'm doing? But she knew what a departing vision was, and so she was able to validate also. So here we have more validation. So this man is beginning to feel more comfortable with what he's seeing with his father. Then he started to notice that there was like a light around his father, some sort of light. And it wasn't super visible, but it was definitely there, and it kind of came and it went. And so that caused him some confusion. And so I said to him, "Here are a couple of chapters in my books, and why don't you read this? And it'll give you some information, and then here are some videos online, watch those." And so he had a third validation. So by now, he's decided that this whole, whatever's going on with his dad is not so woo-woo after all, that his dad is preparing to move to the next dimension. And so he was able to ask his father, "Who are you talking to? What are you talking about? What do you see? What's happening for you?" And though physically his body looked to be in pain, he wasn't in any pain, and so he was able to tell his son that. There then came a time where he decided he didn't want to eat or drink anything, and that's real common when somebody prepares to cross over. Physically, it makes crossing over easier, and so when his father decided to stop eating and drinking, like so many others, he didn't feel the need to push food or water on his father. And at the very end, his father had been asleep for a while. He was going in and out of deep sleep when he suddenly woke up and he said, "I'm coming. I'm going home." And then he passed. And because this individual had been willing to stay the course and do the work necessary to dig through all the information that's out there and to ask questions of me, and then to go to some groups where this sort of thing was discussed, he was able to peacefully be with his father when his father crossed over. Now, this didn't take care of his grief, as I've so often said, and he had to do his grief work. But he knows today that his father is always with him. So I'm hoping that you guys will stay the course and that you will stay away from anybody who tries to force information on you, and that you will do what's necessary for your own spiritual growth. So, Morty's snoring. Is he snoring up a storm? Yes, he is. Okay, I'm going to go. Take care, guys.